Hello, everyone. I'm Alan Potcotter, and you're listening to CallTalk for February 14th, 2018. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Today's topic is, what's the road to customer loyalty? If you're listening live, we invite you to be part of the show and ask questions. Here's how you do it. Email me at alan@benchmarkportal.com. I want to remind everyone that all of our shows are archived and available to listen to at benchmarkportal.com anytime you choose. And now I would like to introduce the host of Call Talk, Bruce Belfiore.
Thank you, Alan, and welcome back to Call Talk, everyone. Well, today we're going to talk about items of interest to both inbound and outbound centers, focusing on ways to get to the prize of customer loyalty by providing superior experiences and engagement. All of us in this industry know that loyalty is the prize. It brings long-term relationships, better profits, and according, in fact, to a famous Harvard Business Review article, the most profitable relationships are the ones that are long-term. It also brings great word of mouth for your company and your brand. So providing loyalty-enhancing services requires hard work, technology, and feedback. And it's the kind that comes with measuring CSAT, NPS, and customer effort. And this is really important and somewhat technical terrain. And that's why we brought in an expert on the topic for you, Bob Kobek, who heads up Mobius Vendor Partners and CustomerCount. Welcome to the show, Bob, and happy Valentine's Day.
Hey, Bruce, thank you. Happy Valentine's Day to you, too. I was intrigued by your statement that a Harvard Business Review article pointed out the value of an existing customer, like we need to be reminded of that. But that was my favorite author, Theodore Levitt. He produced quite a few really good business white papers, so I encourage everybody to go look him up and check his stuff out, because that was one of his pearls of wisdom.
Yeah, there were numerous others too, so thank you for that. Well, just by way of introduction for you, Bob, and we've known each other for some time, prior to forming Mobius Vendor Partners in October of 1999. So you go back to the previous century, Bob. That's how old you are. Bob had already spent more than 30 years in direct marketing industry and government. And Bob's designed more than 150 outbound telemarketing, inbound customer service, and order processing operations and interactive information systems. How'd you do that in all these years? I'm telling you. In 2007, Bob and Mobius launched CustomerCount, a cloud-based survey solution providing intuitive, real-time reporting and basically designed for the contact center industry. Bob is a member of the American Resort Development Association, and he's also a longtime member of PACE, which is the Professional Association for Customer Engagement, and he serves as the chair of the Government Affairs Committee there. Bob attended Holy Cross College at Notre Dame, go Irish, and Indiana University. And BenchmarkPortal, as Bob knows, has its roots at Purdue University, but somehow we're friends anyway. I think Purdue won the most recent basketball games or football games, so I think we've got bragging rights there. But anyway, welcome again, Bob.
Hey, Bruce, I'm flattered that you would consider me a friend. I had no idea, so friends usually are quick to buy a friend a drink. I'll see you at the PACE convention in just outside of Atlanta here in a month or so. And okay. I would like to just take a second to congratulate BenchmarkPortal for its new relationship with PACE and PACE's efforts to increase the education and best practices inside the call center. So BenchmarkPortal is going to be a great partner for PACE, and PACE will be a great partner for BenchmarkPortal. So congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. We're really excited about this. And for our listeners, in fact, there's a series of webinars that we're doing on hot topics for the members of PACE. And we're looking forward to the event that they're going to have, the annual event in Georgia this year. So since it's in Georgia, but since you're a fighting Irish guy, I'll get you a beer, you can get me a bourbon. How's that?
Well, how about if we get me a really nice red wine?
Okay, I can do that too.
I may be from South Bend, Indiana, but I have some culture.
Okay. And I may be from Connecticut, but I'm Italian, so I definitely will go for the wine.
Well,
good stuff.
Either way, I'll be happy to spend time with you.
Okay, great. I look forward to it. And, well, Bob, you're an Indiana boy. You grew up in the midst of the cornfields. How'd you get into this? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my first soiree was actually in a political campaign in 1970, where I was, I guess, hornswoggled into volunteering in a campaign for one of my mentors, Senator Vance Hartke from Indiana, to work in his political campaign, and somehow gravitated to the use of the telephone and designed and put together what were then called phone banks, and predominantly designed for Get Out the Vote, the GOTV effort. He won my county, the St. Joe County, Indiana. He won that by 4,200 votes. Coincidentally, there are 4,300 precincts in Indiana, so less than one vote per precinct. And that got me really, very intrigued in the use of the telephone as a delivery vehicle.
And Bob, how many times did you personally vote in that election? You still there, Bob? I know you're probably you were catching
there we go.
Voice there. So.
Well, actually, that's a very intuitive question, because at the time you had to be 21 to vote. And
yes.
so I could not vote in that election.
Interesting. Okay, good. Well, for some of our younger listeners, that may be a little bit of history for you there.
Yeah, you keep in mind that one vote per precinct, and you had to be 21 to vote. That's quite a feat.
Yeah, that
but
is.
The other issue is that when I did go to work in the United States Senate, Bruce, I was what was called an FCC and an FTC detailee. So my liaison responsibilities in the senator's office was working for the FTC and the FCC. And at the time, they were the biggest promoters of this thing called telemarketing. Look at all the dial tone it's going to move. Look at the goods and services it will sell. And so when I got out of politics and government, I gravitated naturally back to the telephone.
That's great. And actually, I mean, politics is a great place to learn about loyalty and how to help to encourage the loyalty. And you've described loyalty as the monument that's sort of at the corner of a couple of streets. Engagement and service and experience. And I know that you have some paths that you describe in terms of getting to that would be useful for our listeners to know more about. Maybe you could talk about those three paths that you talked to me about.
Well, we as a profession, sometimes we interchange, and we don't confuse, I don't think, but we interchange the words experience and engagement. And they're different. They're very, very different. One of them is measurable. The other one is, you kind of have to push your customers to be more engaged, and there are ways of doing both of those. So when we talk about the CX, that generally means we're going to talk about customer experience, and you don't really hear a lot about, although we strive for to engage our customers. The more we engage our customers, the more we enhance their experience, the greater the likelihood that they're going to remain loyal. That, to me, is the ultimate goal of business. In my business, we've lost one client in 20 years, and we really are more focused on servicing our existing clients than we are on new business development.
Okay, well, hats off to you. That's a great record that I'm sure many people on the phone would envy, having lost only one client in all those years. And, how do you go about measuring whether you're doing the right thing or not? What are some of the ways that you've discovered or experimented with over the years to do that?
Well, a couple ways. You're always looking to measure the customer experience. And if you think about inside a call center, we have really sophisticated technology. The technology that's out there, the off-site premise switches and dialers and all the technology that we have still relies on that human being that talked to that customer to disposition a phone call. They called and they really weren't interested. I called them and and my average contact time was 1.5 minutes. My average connect time, my average contact time, we use the same metrics basically: dials, contacts, completes, SPH, and so. But we're always relying on that agent to disposition the code, and hopefully that gives us an idea of the experience. And then we have the third-party monitoring, where we will call back a certain arbitrary number of people that may have called in to try to get their feedback, and or we will listen to phone calls to determine, what was the quality of that call, and do we need to send that person back to training, all designed around the ability of that agent to be honest and disposition a code. Mm-hmm. Then there's the other way to do it, and that is ask the customer. And so, like for instance, in our environment, we have software that asks the customer. It's a survey, It's actually feedback. There's a difference between feedback and surveys, but just for the purposes of this discussion, it's about asking the customer. And there are times when you can ask the customer, match that up with disposition codes, and actually see the gap. Mm-hmm. That's more of an intellectual exercise, but what I can do when I'm measuring the customer experience from the customer's point of view is I can find out specifically how that agent was doing. Mm-hmm. Was that agent knowledgeable? Were they friendly? I can measure each key performance indicator and get the news from that customer. Now, what have I just done here? One, I've engaged that customer. I've asked them questions.
Yep.
Two, about their experience. So I can now use that data to enhance that next customer's experience. I can use it to train that agent. I can use it to, I can share the information with the marketing department so they can see what people like and what they don't like about your product or your service.
Yeah.
The other way is, and it's really coming hot now, and that is being able to monitor the social media stuff and quantifiably measure what people are saying about you in social media: Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and even in some cases the rating sites like Expedia, TripAdvisor, those types. And so you can measure what people are saying about you, and take that information and begin to enhance your processes as well, and your product.
Right. Let me take you. I'd like to go into more detail on the social media part, but let me just go back for a minute to the agents and the monitoring / getting feedback on. And we've talked in the past about the difference between soft skills and compliance. So if you look at the things that your agents are maybe doing a good job on, maybe needing some help on, quite frankly, those oftentimes can be, separated into one of those two categories. Soft skills, that is to say, how do they interact with, connect with, and appear to the customer? And then on the other side are the compliance issues. Are they saying the right thing? Are they actually giving good information? Or they may be very happy people who make the customer happy, but then the customer hangs up, tries to do what they're told by them, and it's all wrong. Or there could be compliance issues that actually get you in trouble with the law. So when you think about those two components of the monitoring and measuring for the agents, what sort of insights do you have there?
First thing that comes to my mind is the word training. Mm-hmm. But you have to know exactly what to train on. As we know, the most expensive seat in the call center is an empty chair. That's the one where you lose all your business opportunity. And so knowing specifics on what to train on. When an agent starts out, I don't remember the number, but a couple of years ago, the number was $8,000 to get an agent to a telephone, to dial tone, from recruiting through training on the phone. And so you take that $8,000 and you multiply that times the number of W-2s you just sent out, and that gives you an idea what your turnover is.
Right.
Well, if you change that and go back to investing more and getting specifics on what are the key performance indicators that person is excelling on, what are they missing on, what did the customer find out, if the information was not accurate or correct. You need to be able to correct that information, and all that happens when you continually measure to find out and make sure that agent is, that Bob Kobek is on the phone and he knows what he's talking about. Sooner or later, if you send out enough measurement tools, surveys, sooner or later you're going to see a pattern. And by the way, that pattern doesn't take long. When I say sooner or later, I'm talking a couple days.
Yeah, it'll come out. Well,
and as far as the compliance thing is concerned, if you don't have strict compliance training inside your organization, and you can't prove that you have compliance training, I'm talking about the legal stuff now, and you can't prove it, if the FCC or the FTC walks in and they see that you don't have written training, they're going to drop a CID on you, and it's going to be real expensive, even if you prove that you're right.
Right.
Training.
Training, so important. Many of our listeners for this show are basically inbound customer service, but we all need to know about the things that also impact the outbound, which are the ones that could have the most problems with the governmental entities. One of the things I wanted to add, you had 3 M's. Instead of M&M, you had M&M, which was managing, measurement, monitoring, and managing. And with the monitoring, as you discussed it, as you talked about it, I realized there's another M in there, which is mentoring, right? Which is making sure that the agent doesn't perceive all this measurement and monitoring as oppressive, but rather as something that is giving them feedback so that they can, in fact, do a better job, and that you support them in that. Can you talk a little bit about that from your experience?
Well, I can start from maybe potentially a best practice and go work backwards. That is that in some of our clients' call centers, for example, when an agent logs on to their system, the first thing they see is their report from yesterday. How did they do? And they can see whether or not what their key performance indicator scores were, and they can see it as it compares to the rest of the team. Typically, the competitive nature in all of us will say, I really scored low on knowledge yesterday. I need to find out what the heck happened. And at the same time, somebody in QA is looking at that and saying, I really need to get with Bob Kobek and train him on knowledge on this particular and specific product issue. So rather than take Bob off the phone for 2 weeks, I could take Bob off the phone for 2 hours. And train him. I get back to training.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and
using
I think that,
using the information that you get, the measurement information to manage what you get. I think it was Drucker, that said you can't manage unless you measure.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, Drucker was exactly right. I need to know, and I need to know now. I'd like to know. I'd like to ask that customer the question before they jump on Yelp and tell the whole world.
Yeah, and I think the measure and managing goes along with the sort of the monitoring and mentoring, in the sense that if you really want those agents to respond to the whole situation and actually get better, and if they feel like they can actually talk to you about, okay, look, I can see where I'm not doing so well. You're the supervisor, you're the expert, help me out here. What am I doing wrong? What can I do better? How can I do as well as Jimmy or Joni, down the road there, so that I can get up to their speed too? And that's got to be sort of part of the whole equation, don't you think?
Well, yeah. I mean, it is. We are creatures of community, and when they see Johnny and Joni and Bobby down the hall, of course the risk you run, and I've seen this happen time and time again, and we as call center people sometimes don't want to admit it, but there are times when we've got people working on the phones and they're just bombing the deal, and that's why their numbers are up. Oftentimes that top person, they may not be quite telling the truth. And so we've got to monitor, and be careful. And we also have to be careful that we pay too much attention to the low-hanging fruit, not enough attention to the people that are at the top of the room. And again, that's where the monitoring that's where asking the customer comes in. Engaging that customer and helping you make management decisions, it makes all the difference in the world, including at the agent level.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Let's talk a bit about customer effort score and CES and your experiences with that. Tell us a little bit about that, because I'm interested to hear.
Customer effort score works up there along with the Net Promoter Score, the NPS. The customer effort score is a 1 to 7 scale. And so obviously, the closer you are to 7, the easier it is to do business. Mm-hmm. So it's a simple question. It was easy, or how easy or difficult was it to do business with me? So you want to keep people out of the 1 to 4. The people that are 4 and 5 are the ones that are kind of, it was okay, it was fine. And then obviously then the 6s and 7s are the ones that you really like. And you want to get those over 50% if you can. Just like the NPS, where it's the 0 to 11 score, you want to get your 9s and 10s over 50%. Those are goals.
Yep. Yeah. And
in some instances, the Net Promoter Score is a really good predictor of future growth. The customer effort score is a predictor of how am I going to do in an hour from now.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. You put it that way. And, we do know, because we've had an expert on talking about both NPS and CES, and there's the usual statistical controversies about how predictive they actually are and whether their claims can actually be borne out in every circumstance. But what I found is that they're certainly very, very useful in terms of focusing your people and focusing on things that are important. So they can be key issues and really openers for success for a lot of centers.
Well, I don't know if the other experts agree, with what I just said, but I do know that we have been asked by merger and acquisition companies, we've been asked by attorneys, we've been asked by bankers and finance people that are in like a merger acquisition mode or bankruptcy mode or financing mode, with clients' permission, of course, show us their NPS. Because if they're coming back and they're saying we've got all this great goodwill and we've got a great company and everybody just loves us, and they come back with an NPS score of 4, then obviously not.
Yep.
And
that's
so
right.
So Wall Street kind of throws their arms around the Net Promoter Score. Do you want to base your business, Tuesday's EBITDA on it? No, I would say not. Mm-hmm. But it is a good predictor.
Right. Okay, let's go back to the social media that you were talking about, because that's so important as well and becoming more important all the time, and particularly with certain sectors, hospitality, et cetera. Could you just talk to us some more about the social media, TripAdvisor, Twitter, Snapchat, and the sectors, those who may be listening from various sectors who may be particularly or should be tuned into those things?
There's a difference between rating sites, which is TripAdvisor, Yelp, Expedia, where you're asked to give a score. How was it? And then the social digital media, and that's your Facebook and Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, those types. And so, if you're not, there's so much customer service is happening today through social media that if you're not paying attention to those numbers, to that math, then people will get on Facebook and they'll say nasty things about you, and they don't care. They're mad, and so part of the goal to doing that monitoring and part of the goal to do the measurement nowadays is to keep them off of Yelp. Let them yell at me. I would just much rather have them yelling at me than I would telling the universe that they're mad at me. And so when you go to start to monitor the social media, you need to use a monitoring system platform that will actually quantify all that information and qualify that information. In our particular case, for instance, we have a text analytics tool, And so anybody that posts something on TripAdvisor for one of our clients, we take it through an artificial intelligence tool called text analytics and find out if that's positive sentiment, negative sentiment, I mean, I love Purdue University, but their football team really is terrible. So, Bruce, what? So, is that a positive or sentiment or negative sentiment?
Exactly. Yeah, I gotcha.
And so that's why you monitor. The artificial intelligence today is so trainable that it will tell you whether or not that's positive or negative based on everything else you said around it.
Right. Yeah, let me a quick story. There's a situation of a client of ours in the ferry business, and there are situations where they found that they were being blindsided by, situations where the boat would be out of commission, and they wouldn't have been told about it. And so they started to monitor social media on their own. And so they would find out from people around the dock what was going on, and before they found out from their own operating department. And so they actually would take that information, make sure that the rest of the people in the center knew about it, checked with the operating department to see what the status was so that they could give good information out. And then they went actually beyond that. They became proactive. So if there were people who were signed up for that ship that might be sailing, say, 6 hours from then, who might still be at home in a nice warm home instead of out on a freezing dock, they would let them know that this was happening and that they should just stay home until further notice. And, there was going to be a 5-hour delay or a 3-hour delay or whatever it happened to be. And they found that this was extremely helpful in terms of their reputation, in terms of their relationship, and preventing what you were talking about, which are those people, hollering and screaming on social media, because they would find out about it. And they were sort of transparent, and everybody understands that a boat or a ferry is going to break down from time to time. What they don't like is being really inconvenienced by it beyond what's absolutely necessary. So, anyway.
Well, and that's that. I mean, because of the immediacy, even today, somebody that makes maybe just a major purchase in their life, an automobile, they just bought a brand new nice shiny Ford, and what's the first thing they do? They get in their car and they go online and they just type in there what they just bought, and they find out they could buy one for $3,000 less down the street. Because they're so proud that they bought that Ford, and so that's when they get on Yelp. Yeah. And so the ability or the opportunity to engage them quicker, I mean, the sooner the better. Yeah. In our case, when we're doing some call center or contact center survey work, we wait one day just to make sure that everything is sunk in. Because when people get off the phone, they don't necessarily jump on Yelp. However, we have other clients that we get a survey to that customer before they get to their car. Mm-hmm. So excellent. It's situational, but speed's the key.
Yeah.
That's training.
Okay, I think Alan has one question. That's all we'll have time for, because you're very easy to talk to and the time has just flown by. But Alan, could you give us the question?
Yes, we got a question here from Susan. We are trying to decide whether it is worth the expense to get feedback right down to the agent level. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think Susan, that could be my cousin Susan, so I'll answer it the way that she would expect me to answer it. Susan, it is more expensive not to. Let's go back to that empty seat. And let's combine that with the term that we all just, hate so much, and that is agent burn and agent turn. If we don't measure that to the agent level, we will never know what's keeping them happy also. And keep in mind that the same data that you can use to engage your customers, you can also use to engage your employees. So the deeper you can get into that call center, then the better off you're going to be. And the nice thing is, just like using the phone in general, the greatest value is the accountability of it all. I know exactly how many phone calls I got. I know exactly how many phone calls I made. I know exactly how much time it took. I know exactly what happened. And so the accountability is what you're looking for so that you can protect yourself against that agent burn, agent turn.
Okay. No, I'd agree. And there's such a huge correlation between agent satisfaction and customer satisfaction, all of it making perfect sense because grumpy agents are not going to make for happy customers. And, whereas if they're happy, motivated, et cetera, then they're going to do their very best. And they most want to do their very best. So,
Bruce, we've seen some amazing differences between what the agent put down in their disposition and what the customer said. I mean, it's pretty amazing. They loved me. I hated him,
That's right.
Happy, sad, hot, cold.
Yeah.
This has been fun. I really appreciate this opportunity, Bruce, and thank you very much. And thanks to all the professionals that are out in the hinterlands that are listening to this, because I hope it makes a difference.
Absolutely. No, there's some real nuggets in there, some good pearls of wisdom, as always, Bob. So thank you very much for being on. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at the conference in Georgia in a couple of months. So we'll see each other soon.
That PACE convention is going to be great. Thank you, Bruce.
Okay, thank you.
And
take care,
Bob.
Thank
you, Alan.
Alan, anything else to close things down?
Thanks again to Bob Kobek and Bruce Belfiore for your insightful discussion on today's show. Be sure to join us next month for another great show, or look at our huge selection of archived shows and topics at BenchmarkPortal.com. Then click CallTalk, where you'll find over 8 seasons of this show. From all of us here at Benchmark Portal, keep those headsets steady and your fingers ready. This is Alan Pockhotter signing out. Have a great Valentine's Day.